Hello all. I am Witty Bindra from IIT Delhi alumni from IIT Houston, Texas, and past conference and president chair for PanIIT USA. Today we have Gagan Singh joining us from New Jersey for an exclusive interview, which is part of the PanIIT USA. So welcome, Gagan.
Thank you, Witty. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Just to tell people what PanIIT is, PanIIT USA is an umbrella organization representing an alumni network of the most recognizable symbol of India's intellectual excellence, achievement, and leadership, the Indian Institute of Technology IIT system. The IIT alumni around the world have created sustained value for organizations and communities with their thought leadership, business acumen, and sense of social responsibility, all of which are the principles of the IIT brand of education. So before we go ahead, let me tell you about Gagan Singh, our guest today. Now, Gagan is a Chief Investment Officer of PNC Financial Services Group. He is responsible for managing PNC's investment portfolio and balance sheet interest rate risk. In addition, he oversees mortgage services, acquisitions, and hedging, and also directs the activities of the economics groups. Gagan serves as Chief Executive Officer of PNC Capital Finance and PNC Investment Corporation, overseeing the firm's private equity, mezzanine, and alternative investments. He is a member of PNC Assets and Liability Committee, ALCO, and the chairman of PNC's Pension Investment Committee. Prior to joining PNC in 2004, Gagan was at JP Morgan, where he was a managing director and head of the North America Derivative Strategy team. Gagan serves as a member of the Treasury Borrowing Advisory Committee. He is a member of University of Maryland Smith School of Business Advisory Board, and also serves on the board of IIT Bombay Heritage Foundation. Gagan is a member of the USA National Board of Pratham, which is an India-based NGO focused on improving educational outcomes. Gagan received a Bachelor of Technology in Electrical Engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, India, and earned a MS in Electrical Engineering from the University of Maryland, where he was a recipient of the Graduate School Fellowship. He and his wife, Sunana, they have 3 daughters, and they live in New Jersey. So Gagan, once again, thank you very much for joining us today. The first question what the people would like to know is, please take us through your journey from Ludhiana, your place of birth, to growing up in Renukot, a small town in Uttar Pradesh, India, to IIT Bombay, then to the University of Maryland, and finally landing up at PNC Bank. Please.
Sure, Witty, thank you. I've been very fortunate in life, growing up in a small town in UP, which most people in India haven't heard about. To land up on Wall Street was a childhood dream. And it really was. Most people probably think, well, did you think of that in your childhood? And, my dad, who's also an IITian, used to work for a large aluminum company, Hindalco, which was based in Renukut. And it was a small community, but there was a big culture of investing in stocks. So at a very early age, I got interested in investing. And I thank my dad every day for that, because that has been a lifelong passion of mine, which has never left me for, almost 35, 40 years now. As I went through school, obviously the standard paths are you go into medicine, which my mother really wanted me to do, or you do engineering, which we came from a family of IITians. So that was the natural path. Although I did think very hard about pursuing economics, because I knew from a very early age that I wanted to do something in finance and investing. But it's one of those things. I was always fond of math and science, and you get into IIT, and that's another dream come true. So, that took me to Bombay, where I had a wonderful time, at IIT, made a lot of lifelong friendships, had a great experience. But even when I was in IIT, my passion for investing just kept growing. So by that time, I was managing my father's stock portfolio. He was kind enough to let me mess around with it. But by then I knew that, one way or another, I wanted to pursue a career in finance, and what better place to do that than in the mecca of finance, which is Wall Street. Of course, that was a lofty ambition for anybody, let alone, an engineer in India. But I had a couple of seniors who had kind of shown me the path of how to go there. In fact, I had a senior who went to University of Maryland and then joined Lehman Brothers, which was another prestigious Wall Street firm. So that kind of stayed with me, and I, said, okay, if he can do that, I can do that. Of course, as young people, we are, brimming with confidence. I also applied to University of Maryland. Fortunately, I had good grades, good recommendations, etc. And I showed up at University of Maryland. But when I was there, even though I was pursuing electrical engineering, which it was kind of my chosen field of study, I started taking classes in the business school at night. So I was doing double shifts along with some research that I had to do as an engineer. And again, life has been very fortunate. You need a lot of luck. You need a lot of people along the way. And I had, that all my life. But even at Maryland, I had some wonderful professors who, saw the initiative that I was making and took me under their wing. And, the more I studied finance formally, the more it confirmed, my desire to pursue finance. That was, of course, the easy part. That then came the tough part, which was looking for a job. And, Wall Street back then, arguably even now, but certainly back then in the 90s, was a pretty snobbish place. It was a very tight club. You had to have a Ivy League MBA, to get in. When I started looking for a job, I remember, I first secured a job in an engineering electronics firm, Cisco. But I knew that my real heart lay in finance, and I owed it to myself to really, give it a shot. So I sent over my resumes everywhere, reached out to all friends, and it was an uphill battle. But I'll tell you a funny anecdote, which is very pertinent to IIT. One of these days, a headhunter called me and said, it is going to be a challenge, but you went to a great school, and that will help you. And I was like, oh, University of Maryland is a pretty good school, but I didn't know it was known on Wall Street. He's like, no. Maryland is a good school, but I'm talking about IIT. So the IIT name played a big role in me getting on Wall Street. My predecessors from IIT had, like they have done in so many industries, had made a name for themselves on Wall Street. IIT was a well-known brand, very well-respected brand, and that helped me. And that reinforced the pride that I've always had in the IIT schooling, and I'm sure all of you share that, and all the PanIITians identify with that. But again, there were people who helped along the way, and I landed a job at JP Morgan, which is a very prestigious firm in fixed income derivatives, which I studied during my master's, my business school classes in the evening. And from then on, once you get in, it's up to you. You work hard, you make a name for yourself. And that's one of the great things about America is getting in the door is tough, but once you're in, it's a meritocracy. And I have benefited from a lot of good people around me who saw that there was some potential there and helped me get ahead.
Great, excellent. So from a technologist to the Wall Street, what a journey, man. So you had a quite distinct career. And I just want to let the audience know, he comes from an IIT family. his father and their three, his uncle, three chachas were all from IIT. So two from IIT KGB Kharagpur and two from IIT BHU. And one of them was a gold medalist. So it's a second generation of IIT and I'm talking to. Great, excellent. So tell me what and who all have been inspiration in your life? Again, it's a very standard question, but let's hear from you.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to have role models, otherwise you're like a rudderless ship, that can easily go adrift. And I was very fortunate. My dad is one of my most important role models. He is a wonderful human being, a really intelligent IIT Kharagpur engineer, who taught me, really that I remember my dad teaching me from a very young age. He would always say, anytime I would have a disappointment, he would always say, quote a shlok from Bhagavad Gita, which I'll probably butcher, but used to go something like Karmanyavadika raste maaf leshu kadachana, which basically means that, don't worry about the fruits of your labor. Just focus on, putting in your best. And I think those memories are still vivid in my mind. And I think that is an important lesson that when young people ask me, what advice, I really don't have much except to say, give it your best, find your passion in life, and then go all out. So coming back to your question, my dad was a big inspiration, is a big inspiration. At different stages in life, you observe different qualities, and he's, apart from being very intelligent and hardworking and successful, he's also an amazing human being. So that was always something big for me. My Nanaji was a very famous writer and poet, and gave up a very lucrative career, in Indian civil services very early on to pursue his passion for writing and Punjabi literature. That was always a lesson for me that, it is not, you should do what you really like to do. If you're lucky enough to discover what you love in life, then you owe it to yourself to pursue that passion. My uncle, who was a gold medalist at IIT Kharagpur, was also a very big role model for me. Always a very cerebral, very thoughtful, kind human being. I remember I went through a little medical problem after my high school, and that essentially prevented me from playing sports for a while. And I was very fond of sports, all kinds of sports. Never particularly good at it, but very fond of it. And I remember he was visiting right after my surgery, and I was very, very annoyed that I could not go, play anything. And he pulled me aside and he said, this is a blessing. You should have one goal in life, which I still remember. He said, you should be like Arjun, who with blindfolded knew where the fish's eye was. And that should be your focus. And that focus is IIT. You should just simply focus on getting in. It's not easy, but once you do, your life would be made. That taught me the lesson of focus. We all have so many different distractions, so many different careers you can pursue, so many different jobs you can have. I think you need to identify what you really like and then have a single-minded dedication to pursuing that. So that was all my early inspirations. I think later on in life, I kind of adopted, I say jokingly because you'll see what I mean, I adopted Warren Buffett as my guru. I've always been fascinated by his writings and teachings and how he approaches the world of investing. And also just, his morals and principles on how to conduct himself in life. And don't get me wrong, he has many flaws, which he'll, be the first one to say. But I would say, broadly speaking, those have been, my big inspirations in life. And I've kept on to them, as life has gone by.
Excellent. No, that's fantastic. Thank you. So, if I understood correctly, reading your resume, you manage investment portfolios, mortgage, hedging, and other economic group activities at PNC, right? So, how do you see businesses shaping up from here? And what advice you advise entrepreneurs when they are doing the business? What advice you have for them?
Yeah, I think the US economy is going through, and global economy is going through a very challenging time. This pandemic, the COVID virus, is going to leave a pretty devastating blow, even after it has passed. We are going to have some very significant number of people, as much as 10 to 15 million people who are left unemployed because of, the closures in the economy we have had. Overall, the US economy is very resilient. The global system is very resilient. The human race is very innovative. So I'm sure in a few years, we will grow out of it. And in fact, in a few years, we'll look back at it and say this virus really hastened the transition to a more digital economy. That transition has been slowly going on, but it really speeded it up. But make no mistake about it, over the next 6 months, 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to have a lot of devastation. Lots of people who are without a job, which is not only a personal tragedy for the people who are without a job and those families, but it will also have a fairly significant negative impact on the economy as a whole. You wouldn't guess that by looking at the stock market today, but that is, I think, quite deceptive, because the overall level in aggregate demand that we are going to see is nothing like we've seen in the past 5 or 6 decades, including what we saw in 2007, 8, and 9 in the great financial crisis, which was a crippling recession. So I think this is going to be a rough transition. It is going to be painful, but I have no doubt that we will come out of it stronger and better, albeit that it will take a few years.
No, yeah, I fully agree with you. We are going through some tough times, and hopefully they will pass on soon, and will be in a better shape in the days to come. So since you serve on the board of the University of Maryland, how do you see the education system changing from your times to future times?
Yeah, I think the education system has been evolving. I think for the better. As new fields of study come about, new methods, new pedagogies. I think there has been a fairly significant evolution, which is one of the great strengths, especially of the U.S. economy, is the wonderful college system we have, our ability to attract all these foreign students. So I think there was a gradual evolution that was in place. Now, I think this COVID virus might change the way education is delivered. EdTech might become a much more significant part of future education, which in a way might be very good, because it may open up new frontiers and vistas for people who are not present in the geographies that may offer certain type of education. I also think it has the potential to make education more cheaply and more widely available, which is very important for, I think, all societies, but especially India and places like India, where there are lots and lots of lots and lots of illiterate people who never have access to the basic opportunities in life because they don't know how to read and write. In fact, I work for, I'm very passionate about an NGO that I work for, Pratham, whose sole mission in life is to improve access and efficacy of education to underprivileged kids in India and around the world. And while, like every other business, the NGOs and nonprofits are going to have a rough period, I think the ones that can innovate and think about, new methodologies. Look at us, we're talking on Zoom. This meeting would not likely have happened 5 years ago, because we would not have thought, or those technologies would not have existed. And one of the bright sides of COVID, there are very few, but one of the silver linings for education is that educational technology is going to go mainstream, and remote learning is going to go mainstream. I don't think it will replace, physical and in-place learning, but I think it will provide access to people, educational access to people who otherwise might not have had that.
Excellent, and that's great. That's excellent, and I agree with you. The Zoom and the Teams and the Skype, and that's some mode of basic conversation right now. And you can be in any part of. I'm sitting in Houston, and you are in New Jersey, and we are having a face-to-face meeting or talk. Right. That's fantastic. Great. Uh, Going on, is there one or two unique learnings from your life that you consider having had a profound impact in your shaping your career and personal life?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and far from it for me to give advice. But I'll share my personal experience. A couple of things that I learned later on that I think, as I reflect back on my career, that were helpful is, even though I was at point A, I really wanted to go to point B, and I knew that point B was very different from the path I was on for most of my career.
Mhm.
I realized that I think the best way to get to whatever destination you're going to get to is one step at a time. Every phase in life should be a stepping stone to the next. If you're always worried about the destination, then you miss the path. And what I mean by that is, the reason I got to where I got to was by excelling in and working hard on the things I was doing. So even though electrical engineering wasn't my first love for a very long time, and I loved it, I worked hard at it and did well. That allowed me to, take a step on to the next thing. Same thing in my career. When I started, I was in a different field of fixed income than where I really wanted to go. But one possible way would have been, no, I don't want to do this and I don't want to do that. But instead, if you just do well at what you are doing, there are people who will take notice, and there will be doors that will open because of that. So that's what I tell my three daughters now, that just focus on the task at hand and do the best job you can. And whether the task is relevant to the next task or the task after that is not as relevant. What is really relevant is to excel at what you're doing in the moment. And I don't think I fully realized that while I was going through that journey, but as I look back at it, I think that was a lesson that became evident to me. The second thing is more philosophical. I'll give you a small anecdote. So when I was at JP Morgan, this must have been, I don't know, 1999 or 98. And I remember I was having some argument, with my boss and coworkers, and, I'm an intense guy, and I was thinking I'm right. And there was a lot of turmoil going on in my head. And it was a good argument. It wasn't like a personal argument. It was just a work argument, but it was bothering me because I felt I was right. I wasn't being listened to. And it was a hot summer day. I was wearing back in the day, we used to wear ties and suits. I was walking down Wall Street. So I used to take the PART train to World Trade Center, then walk, there was a 10-15 minute walk to my offices on Wall Street. And I remember my head was bursting with, just being annoyed. And I remember I stopped and I looked up and I saw the New York Stock Exchange. And it was a very hot summer day, and I kind of loosened my tie. And I said to myself, why are you so annoyed or angry? You're so lucky in life. This was your childhood dream. There was no way for you to ever put odds that you could achieve on being here. You're here. Enjoy the moment. Be grateful. Be thankful for what life has brought to you. And that has really, and I remember the whatever 2 minutes or 3 minutes of walk that was left from that point to the office, I had a different, I had a spring in my step. I loosened my tie. I had a smile on my face. And every time I go through a little rough period, and life's been very good to us, I remind myself, it's very easy to say this is wrong or that is wrong, and I'm unlucky or I've done this. But it's important to kind of, have perspective that we are better off than many other people, and it didn't have to be this way. You could have taken a very different path that didn't end up like this. So sit back, enjoy, be grateful, and work hard, but also, have some perspective that there are lots of people who are as smart, as hardworking, who don't have not had 100 the opportunities that many of us are afforded.
Yeah, no, the great response. Excellent. So, what will be your message to the alumni community and students in developing their career and in general and the challenging times like this COVID-19?
Yeah, this is also a tough time for students, given what is going on with H-1B visas and F-1 visas, things that I'm intimately familiar with. And it can be disheartening, but I think you have to have faith, faith in yourself, faith in society around you. I think you've already, people who've already made it to IIT, um, the vast majority are going to be successful. They may not know it yet. For the young students, have the confidence. You by coming to IIT, you've already demonstrated a high level of achievement, and the world awaits. And yes, this is a tough time period. Yes, the jobs will be more challenging. Yes, visas might be more challenging. But there is no doubt in my mind that IITians, young, hardworking students, are going to do well. And you have to have faith. You have to keep working hard. Faith doesn't mean that you sit on your hands and do nothing. You have to show initiative, knock on doors, tap your contacts, tap the wonderful alumni network that IIT has. And things will start to fall into place, and don't get disheartened. It is prepare yourself for some a little tough period ahead, but don't lose sight of where you want to go, or give up on it.
Excellent. No, thank you very much. And I think that's the right message for the youngster nowadays. If they face one failure, they are demoralized. They say, "Man, end of this world." That's not the case. As you rightly said, keep on working hard, and don't think about the failures. Be optimistic and see what is good there for you in life. No, I agree with you, and that's a fantastic message. So, anything else you would like to share, or should we have asked you?
Nothing that I can think of. I mean, I would just say, PanIIT is a source of joy and pride for all IITians. Thank you for all the great work that you guys do. It's a wonderful organization, and appreciate everything you do to bring IITians together and keep the IIT network growing, and have the pride in the IIT brand. Keep building it.
That's fantastic. No, thank you very much. So finally, on behalf of PanIIT USA, I would like to thank Gagan for his time today, and also all the PanIIT USA volunteers engaged with different initiatives. And special thanks to Arun Jain. He is the current Vice President of PanIIT USA, IIT Guwahati alumni, who is a technologist for all these online webinars. So thank you, Arun, for the great work you are doing. As always, fantastic. So once again, thank you, Gagan, and it was a pleasure to have you with us today, and hope you will return to visit with us again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Witty. Pleasure was all mine. Thanks for having me.